Hi, I'm James, creator and founder of Odie's Oil. And today I'm going to show you how to finish with our products and the various techniques and tools used for application. So the basic tools you will need for finishing a wood surface with Odie's Oil for wood would be a jar of Odie's Oil and these non-woven pads for applying the oil. The most important tool in the whole setup is this white cotton terry towel. As you can see, the oil comes very thick at first. If you stir it, it starts to loosen up. So here I am, I'm stirring, making sure I'm getting all the ingredients off the bottom and making sure all the contents are properly stirred together and emulsified. And now you have liquid. So one of the most critical things to consider when you're applying Odie's oil is the amount of product needed to coat the surface that you're applying the oil to. And when it applies to wood, you have different species of woods and varying densities of each species. This is a piece of Brazilian cherry. This is a fairly dense wood. This wood's rated around 2400 on the Janka scale. This piece of wood, this Odie's Oil jar, will cover about 400 plus square feet. The entire jar will cover 400 plus square feet on the Brazilian cherry. This piece of wood is around 18 square feet. It's very important to consider that. It's really the biggest mistake that most users make when using Odie's Oil. This jar of oil is so potent that it goes that far. We're going to use very, very little. We're going to use like a half an ounce. That's after our pad is saturated. So the first part is to get the pad moistened with some oil. Then apply a small amount on the table. I'm going to apply the oil with this Merca Merlon pad. This is a 2500 grit Merlon pad. I've already put a small amount of oil on the pad, and I'm just going to make sure I moisten it up just enough. And then I'm going to go ahead and start by putting a small amount of oil on the surface of the wood. And then I'll work the oil in circular motions. And notice, I didn't put it all over the piece. I did not use a credit card or a card scraper. I did not use a putty knife. And as time goes by, the oil is going to start to saturate and go deeper into the wood and bringing out more and more of the natural color. I'm also not wearing any gloves. Just about every other finish on the market, you've got to wear gloves. Don't need them. Odie's is 100% natural, food safe, non-toxic, and solvent-free. No fancy buffers needed or anything. Just a simple Merlon pad to be sure to cover everything. But just enough oil is needed just to change the color of the wood surface, just to show that it's wet. You don't want to saturate it with too much oil. Odie's works by penetrating deep into the wood, bonding with the wood fiber, and becoming one with the wood fiber. It's not a surface coating. It doesn't belong sitting in a thick layer on the surface. It's supposed to be in the wood, hardening inside the wood, therefore making the wood surface harder, denser. So now I got the entire surface covered, and look at it transform. It's become a beautiful piece of wood. Now what we'll do is, after I got this all coated and covered and I have the finish worked into the surface, I'm going to let it set up for about an hour, and then I'll come back and I'll buff it off with the cotton terry towel. That simple. Buff off. The most important step when finishing with Odie's Oil. Very important. I can't stress it enough. This piece of Brazilian cherry, we finished it with one coat of Odie's Oil. We got it on there, a nice light, even coat, and it sat for an hour, and now it's ready to be buffed off. And how do I know it's ready to be buffed off? Is this. If I can run my finger across it, and I leave that little streak, that little shiny mark, can you see it? these little shiny marks here. That means I have enough oil on this piece. I don't have too much on, and I don't have too little. If I had too little and I did this, I wouldn't be able to make that mark, and it would be dry looking. And what I would have to do is add another light coat. Very, very rarely will that ever happen. So the way we're gonna buff it off is with this cotton terry bath towel. I'll use old bath towels. I'll take a towel it's at the end of its life, I'll cut it up into sections, and I'll use it to buff off several tables. So we're gonna go ahead and start buffing it off. And the best way to start doing this is by hand and in the direction of the grain. And I'll fold my towel up as I did. And as I start buffing it off, look at the sheen that's been revealed below that haze of oil. And then I run my fingers over it and I don't see a mark. That means I got it all off the surface. And if I look at my towel, I notice I got oil on it. That's why I kind of like to use a white towel, because it's a telltale sign that I'm starting to load up the surface of the nap. I'll keep using it for a little while until I feel it's been saturated with oil. Because once it's saturated with oil, it's not going to absorb anymore. And then you'd just be smearing oil around the surface and you're defeating the purpose. You're not really buffing anything off. And now it's time to flip over to a cleaner side of the towel. So I'll go to this side now. In the direction of the grain one more time. I get this last section. And now I've removed all of the excess oil. So I got all the excess off. I can touch the piece. It feels pretty dry and pretty smooth, but I'm gonna go back and use the clean side of the towel again and wipe it down one more time. And this time, I don't have to go in the direction of the grain because I got all the excess oil off. And we are done. Now, if you like using power tools, and most woodworkers do, this is when you can use a polisher and a cotton bonnet or a lamb's wool bonnet. Now you can hit it after you buffed it all off. You ensured all the oil is gone. Then you can hit it with a polisher and hit it one more time just to ensure you got every last bit off. And that heat will actually set up the oil that's in the wood and activate the polymerization process. But it's not necessary. We're done. This piece has been successfully buffed off. There's no residual oil on the surface. I can touch it. It feels completely dry to touch. And it has a spectacular sheen for 400 grit with an oil finish. Look, I'm not leaving any marks. I can touch it, put my hands on it. It's not a problem. So in summary, easy finishing with Odie's oil. You need a jar of Odie's oil, stir it thoroughly, calculate how much square footage you need to use. In this case, we needed about 18 to about 20 square feet. So we used a ½ an ounce. In this species of wood, Odie's oil will cover about 40 square feet per ounce. Apply the oil with the non-woven pad, whether it's a white pad, gray pad, red pad, all depending on what your sanding level was. Work it in, wait an hour, buff it off by hand with a cotton towel, just like this, until there's no oil on the surface. And then you have a beautifully finished surface, just like this one, where you're able to touch it immediately without leaving marks or any smudge marks or any fingerprints on the surface. Happy finishing. If you have any questions, please contact us. We're always here to help. Thank you.